No, the only other stress, I think, if you're a child, is if it's someone's birthday. And I do think the social world for 6-year-olds is really quite exhausting. Like, say it was someone's birthday in your class. Say it was like Ryan's birthday in your class. Ryan would have been bought a pad of pre-printed invitations on which he would have had to fill in his details. So you'd basically get an invitation which basically read, Ryan is having a birthday party on the 23rd of May! Please come to my party. And then there'd be a dotted line, which you'd hope would be perforated, but you'd have to get the scissors. And then underneath that, you'd have to write in your details. You'd have to write, Tom would like, / would like not, please delete as appropriate to come to your party. And if you said you were going, and you filled that form in, and you handed it in, that would be a contract. A contract on which you could not renege. And then what would happen is you'd forget all about Ryan's birthday party until the day of Ryan's birthday party, and then your mum would walk in and she'd say, oh, shit. It's Ryan's birthday party. We ain't bought him nothing. You can't go empty-handed. People will think we're poor. What is Ryan like? And this was a time in history when I'd say something like, oh, I don't know, maybe a Tamagotchi? My mum would say, what the fuck is a Tamagotchi? So it's just like a bit of fun. It's a key ring, you've got to give it food and water, keep it alive, make sure it doesn't die. And I remember my mum saying, we've been doing that for you for 6 years! None of that is a bit of fun! And anyway, you'd get the Tamagotchi, take it home, wrap it up. Then your mum would whiten your trainers using a special magic whitening fluid. It came in a special magic bottle with a round sponge at the end. And I'd always say, Mum, why are you doing that? And she'd say, it's because I want people to know I care about you. Which, to be honest, I didn't know was in question. And then you'd be driven round to Ryan's house complaining all the way. Your mum saying, you'll enjoy it when you get there. Knowing full well you wouldn't, right? You'd get there, you'd be allowed to walk up the path on your own. In the background, you'd hear the sound of meow, which was your parents fucking off, deserting you for the afternoon with these strangers. Walk up the path, you'd ring the doorbell. Ryan's mum, Anne, would answer the door. Anne was having a very stressful time. Because Anne was organising the birthday party and the party bags. And party bags back then were very stressful. I'm sure party bags now are all just iPads and taramasalata. But back then, it was a tiny plastic bag filled with felt tip pens, a box of Smarties, a tube of refreshers, and then a tiny game where you had to get a ball bearing into a hole, which was enough. And Anne would say, come into my house, please be careful with it, I've worked very hard, you'll probably never afford one. Come into my house, take your shoes off. You spend most of your time, as a child, putting on your shoes and taking them back off again. Which was always very stressful for me because I didn't learn to tie my shoelaces until quite late. And my parents would always say to me, what are you going to do when you grow up if you can't tie your shoelaces? What are you going to do? I mean, your tracing skill's already bad enough. What are you going to do when you grow up if you can't tie your shoelaces? And I'd always respond by saying, duh, espadrilles. Still had to come out. Anyway, so you'd go into the party, right? You'd have to give Ryan his birthday present. You'd hope no one had bought him the same thing. Inevitably someone had, probably someone like Kevin in my class. Kevin was my arch enemy. Arch, because he was also gay. And he didn't even have the courtesy to hate himself for it. Can you imagine how obnoxious that was? Saying things like, ooh, Anne, I like your curtains. No, Kevin, that's my special thing. And then, right then, you'd have to go into the party. Then you'd have to meet Ryan's dad. And you never met people's dads back then because they were always out having affairs, working. And Ryan's dad would be taking you out to do some sort of activity like 10-pin bowling. Now, bearing in mind, this was a time when it was completely fine to transport 15 children in one stranger's car. There'd be 3 of you sellotaped in the front, 10 of you in the back, all in shell suits. I mean, you were packed in so tightly, if you went over a speed bump, you could rub together, you could catch fire. And then, as a treat, 2 of you would have to travel in the boot. He says, it's all right, I'm taking the parcel shelf off so you can breathe. But remember, if you see the police, get down. completely fine to say to children. And then you get to, like, the mega bowl, right? You run in, you have to take your shoes off again, have to take your shoes off again. I don't know why I bothered putting shoes on at all today, right? But as you know, at 10-pin bowling, you all have to take everyone has to take their shoes off. You have to put on the grandma's shoes. We all know that. We all have to put on the grandma's shoes. It's very precious because the floor of the bowling, it cannot take outdoor shoes. It's a very precious floor, very precious, the floor of the bowling. It's a bit like the floor of the gym at secondary school where you go for year assembly. Do you remember that? Everyone had to take their shoes off to go into year assembly in the gym. Do you remember that? It was a right faff, wasn't it? But everyone had to do it. Everyone except that one girl. Do you remember that one girl? Never had to take her shoes off. Do you remember her? Because she was always allowed to wear trainers. Do you remember her? Always carrying crutches. Never seemed to need them, though, did she? Always had glandular fever or a twisted ankle. Always had a note to get out of PE. What was wrong with her? No one knew. No one knew. Where is that girl now? Where is she? Where is she? Well, she's dead. So... Then you'd go into the bowling, and then it would dawn on you. You had no idea how to bowl because you were like 6 years old, and you weren't Roseanne Barr's husband, right? And so... You'd go into the bowling, right? You'd have to choose a ball. You always felt like you had to prove something. So you choose a ball that was far too heavy for you. Could barely get your fingers round it. Right? You pick up this ball, drag it to the end of the lane, lob it into the middle of the lane. It would immediately go in the gutter, and that would be the end of your experience of bowling. And I remember thinking even then, why is this floor so precious we cannot wear outdoor shoes on it? But it's completely fine to take a 15-kilogram marble and smash it into the middle of it. And then you'd have to go back to Ryan's house for a birthday tea, which Anne would have organised resentfully. And a birthday tea back then would have consisted of crisps and chocolate together, which is disgusting, and pink wafers. Do you remember pink wafers? Oh, so delicious. Oh, the taste of pink. Oh. And what are they made of? Silly bang? Nobody knows. And then you'd have party rings. Oh, party rings. Never as much fun as they sound. Party rings. And what is a party ring anyway? It's basically just a dried up biscuit covered in enamel. Just you're trying to get your teeth through that. Suddenly, the lights would go out, and I'd always think, oh my God, are we being raided? But no, then what would happen is Anne would suddenly re-emerge, quite satanically underlit by flames. And she'd walk in going, ha, 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 happy birthday to you. Supposed to be the happiest day of your year. We sing just the clearest song in the world. Happy birthday. Then Ryan would have to blow out his candles. He'd basically just spit all over a cake. Make a wish, Ryan, maybe for a dry cake. But you'd never get to taste it because Anne would whisk it away into the kitchen, chop it up into chunks, shove all those chunks in a paper Transformers napkin, put all those chunks in their party bags, hand those out to everybody, then turn to everybody and go, get the fuck out of my house! Oh, it was a wonderful time to be alive.